Hey, this week I made Leo from the IDW comics, and I'm going to show you how. So start off, I soaked him in some recently boiled water to soften him up, and then I can just pull the belt right off him, and while it's soft I give a little bit of damage to the chest area. Now I'm using my cordless Dremel to sand off his cheeks because the IDW turtles have a different shaped face. Also, I'm going to do something I avoided for the last 3 turtles because Leo's the last one I'm doing, but I'm going to try to give him actual elbows and knees. The other guys I gave them wraps, and Mikey I did first because he actually keeps his pads. And so that was the easiest. And then after sanding with the Dremel, and I use a scouring pad to clean up the last little burrs. Now I'm using green stuff, which is a putty, and it dries hard like plastic, and I'm adding to the elbows and knees. Now I'm sanding the corners off his sword because the IDW version of Leo has a round guard on his sword, like you could see there. Now after the putty dries, it takes 24 hours, but I'm just sanding it to clean it up and smooth it up and try to get rid of some of the connecting lines if I can, because it leaves like a line where the putty connects to the plastic. Now I am giving him a little bit of wraps, not like everyone else, but I just added to hit the top of his hand to make that all blend in better. Now everything gets a clear coat of a matte acrylic varnish. Now I had the green that I used previously, and then I mixed in a little bit of a brighter green because Leo is the brightest out of all the 4 turtles in the comic books. And I just get everywhere. And now I have a burnt umber. I'm just getting in all the cracks and details on his shells. And do a second coat of the green. And I make sure to be careful to get all his joints and let it dry before I move them. I have a black acrylic primer that I'm using on the hilt and guard of the swords. Then I go in with the raw sienna. I'm just kind of dry brushing it onto his front shell there, and even more or less, dry brushing less of it onto his back shell, because I just want to make all the details pop out and have less there and keep some of the green that's already there. So I couldn't get rid of all the little cracks by just sanding the green stuff putty. Now I'm using Spackling to fill in those cracks, and Spackling is great. It's for filling like little nail holes in drywall, but it dries in like 15-20 minutes, and then you can just easily sand it. I went in the cracks with some cinnamon brown, and now I'm dry brushing daffodil yellow. It's just a really light color. When you do a really light dry brush, it's going to pick up every edge and just bring out all the details and make everything pop out and look dope. That's why just doing the shells have been my favorite part of this. Well, these last 4, I just think they come out looking really cool. And then I'm dry brushing a lot of the daffodil yellow on his chest area because I want to lighten that whole thing up, but also make the details pop out. And now his knees were too big after I put the green stuff, so I sanded those down and then had to paint everything else with the green that I just sanded or messed up. And I have a white acrylic mixed with a white acrylic primer that I used to cover his eyes and his mask. And then I have a gray that I mixed. It's just black and white make gray. You know that, I assume, but I said it anyway. And I have a Copenhagen blue for the first layer of blue I'm putting on his bandana. And I just cover that. I might do a Rat King, but it'll have to be in November. Now I'm covering everything I recently painted with a clear coat, and that's just going to seal everything up. And I'm still working on it, but now nothing's going to scratch or smudge while I'm working. And I'm going with a blue neon, which is pretty close to the Copenhagen blue, but it's just going to add a little bit more brightness to his mask. And that's my second coat or third coat. I think I did 2 of the Copenhagen blue. Now I'm dry brushing silver all over his sword, on the black part and on the sword part. And now I have a black acrylic wash. It's just black acrylic and water, and I'm covering all the spots. I painted gray because he's got like black or dark gray, so I did the light gray, and then the black wash will darken everything up and also get in all the cracks and make the details pop out more. That's like an iridescent. It's got a blue violet shine. I also used it on Donnie's staff, but I didn't show that part because I didn't think it made a difference, but then when I looked at the pictures later, it did. And his mouth wasn't right, so I got a little more of the green stuff putty. I put it in his mouth to make it smaller, and I had some left over that I had rolled up, and I used it to make, he's got like a little throwing knife on his belt in one of the reference pictures I was going off of, so I made that. And then touch everything up that I just did with the green, and use my knife and then peel those off of the cardboard I stuck them to. And then his wraps were a little lighter than I wanted them, so I give him another coat of the black wash and let that dry. And now I glue down his shells with some super glue and cover the place. Every time I paint something, generally I'm covering it with a matte varnish, just I'm close to the end of painting at least. Now I have to put his belt on, so that's just some leather that I cut out of an old shoe that I couldn't wear anymore because it was worn out. But the leather was good, so I cut it up, and I'm using it for all these 4 IDW turtles. Well, this is the 4th one, and then I'll probably use it for some other stuff in the future eventually. And I just tried to match his straps like they are in the comic, and I glued that down. It's really only one side was like a hero side. The other side was pretty flat and had no details. Now I do a figure 8 as like a thing to hold his weapons on the back. Instead of doing 2 circles, I thought it might be easier to just do one, but then I glue another strap that's holding on to that strap. Then I added this extra piece there because on the inside where I'd folded it, it's kind of like furry, and I didn't like the way it looked. So now I'm making him a couple bags, so that's just cut some more of that leather and then glue it, the strip. I glue it once and then glue the flap down. And that's how I did it. Yeah, I think he looks alright. I had already done the other 3, and so I thought I had to do something different with him. That's why I went the extra with the green stuff putty and his knees and elbows, and that maybe made it worse, or at least made it different if you've watched all of them. But thanks a lot for watching. Next week I'm going to be doing something from the 87 series, and until then, remember, always keep your head up. Peace.